All right, hello all. It's another Arch Linux video for you. This is going to be on using GitHub or GitHub to basically clone your desktop in case you want to reinstall Arch or just to have your desktop presented to you upon reinstallation, for example, or just to have your settings saved online, basically. And Git is used for a lot of GitHub. I'm sorry, is used for a lot of projects and coding and stuff, and of course programs. A lot of user repositories now from Arch Linux are from GitHub. So it's not too hard to do, actually. Maybe you didn't realize it or never used it before, but it's not. GitHub's not that hard to use. So here's my Git page, okay, https://github.com, then a username, and then the name of the project repository. The one I use quite a bit when I want to mess around with different Arch Linux interfaces is and I want to go back to Xfce. I have a repository called Xfce-post, and in it I include an installation bash file. You just make that writable after you download it, and you just it's very, very simple. As you can see, is sudo pacman to get this and install a lot of things that you might want to use in an Xfce4 Desktop, and various other things that you can add to your liking. So that would be just the installation file. And as you can see here, chmod to the Arch Linux user repository files that I might want to use. So that would be here, and it's just very simple: locale purge and grandpa thunar, as you can see here, and so on. And again, you can chmod that through the initial installation. So it's not too hard to use, and you can add things like a post clean setup, or it just updates the GTK icon cache, and so on. So I pulled up a Virtualbox, and I really strongly suggest you do most of your cloning in Virtualbox and mimic your desktop, your Xfce desktop in this case, as close as you can to your actual desktop. As you can see here, it's fairly close. The wallpaper is not that important, but the start menu is pretty close as far as the way it looks, and other aspects such as the file manager, the way that's laid out compared to what I have on my system, and the bordering and the themes and etc. Just the user interface of the Xfce4 Desktop. So let's go back to the web, and it's anybody can create a user account. All right, it's not just because you use Linux or anything. It doesn't matter. Anybody can create a GitHub account. I suggest to keep it fairly simple, though. Like my username is fairly straightforward. I spell it wrong purposely, by the way. And you just get all this stuff the way it's set here, exactly the same thing, but just your stuff. And to get started, all you have to do is create a new. Just click this plus sign, create new repository, and make a basic README, and you can put like your favorite Linux applications just to get started. You don't have to have a huge script or anything like that, or an application that you built. You can use it for multiple purposes. So speaking of which, we'll just create new, okay? And this is on the main desktop, so new repository. So I want to clone my desktop, Xfce desktop. So I already have an Xfce-post, so I'm going to call it something else, such as Arch. And again, keep these fairly simple. Arch Xfce. That's good enough. And then make it public, of course. That's by default. And initialize this repository with a README, and then create. Very simple. And just give it a bit of time. There we go. And the README is Arch Xfce. You can change that at any time for any reason, for whatever you want. So now you can start adding files if you want, such as scripts, but it's much easier, I find, in the command line when you want to add folders. There is a way you can do it by just, I don't want to create anything here. That's why I'm sort of hesitant, like .config/ you put a slash, it'll be a file, but I'm just going to cancel that. Okay, so we'll go back to the Virtualbox desktop, and you don't have to sign in yet through the command line, but you just clone this, whatever your username and whatever you called your repository, onto the virtual desktop. I would suggest, obviously, you have to have Git installed, which sudo pacman-S Git. I already have it installed. I would also suggest getting sudo pacman-S. As I said before, I use an alias for that. Is open SSH. I don't think that's installed here. No, it's not. Okay, so get at least those two to get you started. Now you can do this right in your home folder, and just create a new folder called clone. It doesn't matter what it's called. And inside that folder, open a terminal, and you just take this address. I don't know if I can copy this or not. Over. We'll see. I can. So before that, if you can't copy it, it's not that hard to type out. Git clone. Make sure there's a space, and press enter, and it's done. And there it is. There's the README file we just created from the website. Press Control H. Oops. You see a .git. You don't have to worry about that. That's just a layout and stuff for your what you're going to add to this repository. Now, to get things rolling, you have to basically initialize the JIT configuration file on the on your system. In this case, in Virtualbox, and the commands are JIT config and then global username and then your username, and they are in quotes, by the way. JIT config global user email, your user email, and this, just to convenience, timeout 3600 seconds. And then you pass other commands such as JIT commit, JIT push, JIT pull, and just in case. All right. So again, this is through a terminal. So open a terminal in that same directory, I guess, and just take JIT config global username and copy that into the terminal. For example, I'll upload those notes just to make it a little easier for you. And then your username. Okay, that's it. And you do the same thing for the email. Once you're finished with that, you can start copying your config and files and folders into this cloned directory of what I called Arch_Xfce. So, for example, I would suggest copying the full path just in case. So cp for your config-r/home, your username .config to /home, just in case. You never know. Capital C clone. I should have actually called it, renamed that as a small letter C, but it doesn't matter. and Alt Tab, and there's our .config. There's not much in here, and there isn't any much in the way of user identifiable information. Although this file here, inside your clone, just be careful. Inside your clone that you're going to use on GitHub is make sure just delete that because it causes problems. All right. Everything else is in here. Pretty much your interface, Xfce4 and the session, and how you have Thunar set up, and what programs you're using, the menus, and so on. The way you have leaf pads, the way it's laid out, and so on. And another directory. Be careful with this one. Same idea. Your full username and .local to home. Clone the Arch Git directory, and so we'll go up one and local. There isn't much in here. We should be okay for most of this stuff. Okay, now this, for example, this is the local shared applications. These are things that I removed from the start menu because I don't need them. Okay, so that's why that's in there. Desktop directories. You might want to, if you're using Zeitgeist, you can completely delete that if you want. And recently used, you can just take these and delete. It doesn't really matter in this case because it's just a clone basically. And maybe delete that if you don't feel safe. You can leave it there though. Okay, so is this making sense so far? I hope. So just your config files and your .local directory. Now other things such as .parallel and .gnu pg and .gvfs, they're all going to be created when you install Xfce or just Arch, mostly Xfce, for example. Other things I would be concerned with, or not concerned with, but you might want to copy is your bash RC, and if you have a .gtk RC -2.0. So that's what I've done here. I've just copied those two files over inside the terminal. And in this case, I'm also going to include pre-compiled user repository files. There's 6 files here. Okay, and I called it AUR_files. So you could break the rule a bit, just press Control-C, and then go to your Arch Xfce, unhide, make sure you're in the right directory, and just Control-V to paste that in. Now what I did, I'll give an example, is just take locale purge, download it from the Arch Linux user repository, so download the package build or whatever the AUR4 calls it now, but it's the same thing. And you extract it, and you just open the terminal where that is, and you just type in make pkg space -s, and that's done. And you just take this file, the execute of the installer package installer for Pacman, the tar.xz, and just copy it into your AUR files folder like I have here. So in that way it's more trouble free, and you don't have to rely so much on downloading more stuff from the internet. They might become out of date, but you can always update those after you've cloned your desktop. Okay, so we got a fair portion of what we want to upload, so we can just do a git and a space init, press enter, and initialized, and then just type in git status, and it says use git add file to include in what will be committed. Just type in git add, and you can press tab there actually. So again, just type in git status, and now it shows you all the files and everything. that you're going to commit to the Git repository. So let's try that out. Git, and we've already done the initial commit when we created the readme.md. So git commit -a for all, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so you got to edit the commit message, and you just add anything you want to. Add new files, folders, just for the record, save, and quit. There we go. So now it's ready to be uploaded, and that's just a matter of issuing just one more command. So the last command, before issuing it, change directory into your repository now so it can see everything. And the command is git push -u origin master. And it's going to ask you for your username and your password. Once you're done with that, it should upload the new files and folders. Okay, so the files have been uploaded. It's not very big, so it only takes a couple of seconds. If you run into problems, just keep adding and checking the status. That's what I do, is git commit or git init, git add anything that it's not seeing, and git commit, and just try the push origin master. Okay, and it gives you the link right here. So let's go back to the web page, and we'll just reload F5, and there we go. Everything that we just had on in Virtualbox is now uploaded to your Git repository and whatever you want to call it. So there's your configuration folder, your local folder, and the Arch Linux user repository pre-compiled files, bashrc, gtk, and the readme. And like I said, you can see it says initial commit. Again, you can change that at any time. Now that we have the basic structure uploaded, it's just a matter of either configuring the files right from the web interface. You can do them on your main system now. Just remember to clone it onto your main system, and/or inside Virtualbox. For example, if you want installation scripts, a bash script, you can edit it anyway and just push it up to your GitHub repository. So here's an example of the one I usually use, Xfce-post of the bash script. And as I said, it's fairly straightforward. Just title it $bang exclamation /bin/bash, and then sudo everything, and then sudo pacman all the files you think you're going to need. Again, you can be trial and error. That's another reason to use a virtual machine, Virtualbox, for example. You can put the no confirm on this because most of this stuff is from the user repository. I mean, not from pacman itself, so it's fairly safe. If it doesn't work for you, just leave out the no confirm, and you just hit yes. That's all. And update the XDG user DIRs, so you have your documents, downloads, folders, and so on. Then you can create another script for Arch Linux installation. I just call it AUR_INS, and other things. If you use mlocate, I update the database. LXDM is login manager. NTPD is for network time. Network manager will enable all the subsequent services, and then you can have a post clean like I mentioned before, but I'm going to leave that out of this one. So all you do is edit your file either through the web interface, which is probably easier because it's just a file. You just add INS. So just take all this and open a text editor just in case and paste it in there. And we'll go back to our newly created repository. And we're just going to add, click the plus sign, call it, I usually, like I said, keep it simple, so INS for install. And then make sure you go down to this because you don't want to have all those commands as your title. So Control A, Control C, and Control V. There it is. And I'm going to take out this post clean. Be careful with this. So delete, highlight anything. Delete and backspace. And just double check and just commit the new file. And if you want to get a little fancier, you can just install your user repository files, either the pre-compiled or you can use YAWART if you want to, and just sudo pacman-U and these files. I'll get to that in a second though. So I'll create a new file again, click the plus sign, AUR_INS, alright, and you can fill in, it's very simple, sudo pacman, I should put the declare it as a bin bash file, and sudo pacman-U all.tar.xz, like so. So let's go back to our initial installation file, and we're going to edit this time, and you can go into what they call Zen Mode if you want for a full screen, and we're just going to we don't have to do that. I've already put that in, but I have to change this Arch _Xfce / the new file we made, AURINS. Alright, then we just we don't exit Zen Mode, and you can take a look to make sure the path is correct, and we'll just commit changes. If it's not, it's no big deal. You can always redo this in your Virtualbox environment. So back to the root of our repository here, and I gotta change the AUR install. I should put the full path, so we'll edit that. Alright, so back to Virtualbox. I usually like to keep snapshots. The snapshot is the initial installation, snapshot 1, initial installation of Arch Linux. And just a matter of picking the snapshot and click this restore button, and it'll ask you to restore, create a snapshot of the current state in case you don't want to lose all your work. It'll be called snapshot 2, and press OK. There's not much on here, so it's very quick. So we can reinitialize and go back to what I had one day ago and start the virtual machine. Alright, before we get to Virtualbox again, I added a new file, LXDM configuration, because that's what I'm using for the login manager. So I just reflect that in the initial installation. So I make a backup. Actually, I move it to back, and then I just copy the modified configuration file to its default location. And a couple of things: remove.config, remove.local. It's probably not there. You'll see an error, but it's just in case. And you just copy those config files and other bashrc and gtkrc over to your local directory, and that's it. And I also added one more thing, is to just start the Arch Linux user repository installation. So we're back at the beginning. I'll log in as a user. There's no login manager or anything, and we'll just ls-la, and you see there's no Xfce of any kind on here. So it's just a matter of calling down the GitHub repository. So git clone http://git hub, such a weird thing to spell on keyboards, .com/your username/your project, Xfce, and give it a second. It's not very big. And list out again, and then chmod +x xfce arch _xfce, and then ins. Press enter. Arrow key up 1. But what I'm going to do first is synchronize the mirror list with Reflector. That's a script that I have that I use all the time. And try it one more time. Sometimes I do this a couple of times. Alright, because the worst thing to have is a timeout. So anyway, just delete up to the, take the chmod part out and just press enter. And this will take a bit of time to download, of course, and when it's installing, updating the icon cache can take a bit of time as well. So don't worry, just let it sit there and it'll do its thing. So I'll be back for the next part. Alright, so here we are at the prompt to install the Arch Linux user repository files, and it's created all the same links for the services, and as I mentioned, it says cannot remove .local, no such file, but as I said, just on the safe side, it doesn't affect anything. So just press enter to continue. It will download the dependencies for the AUR files and then install. This shouldn't take long at all, actually. And that's it. That's all we have to do. And then just issue a reboot. And hopefully we'll see our login screen. Alright, so here we are. And just log in, and we'll see what happens. Looks pretty close. See the start menu. We have the theming of the start menu and the taskbar and so on. Soon our file manager, same sort of setup with the press Control M. You can hide and unhide that. I like to have it hidden because I don't use it that much. And the only difference, of course, is you have your repo, which you can delete. Say just open the terminal and do it like this, sudo. If you don't want it, you don't have to remove it right away in case something goes wrong, but if everything seems fine, just sudo rm-r arch and it's gone. And one more thing I should mention to wrap this up is, if for some reason you log in or try to log in and it doesn't work, first of all, check the LXDM or whatever login manager you're using. Make sure it's finding Xfce. And also, sometimes the way you have your session set up, you might have saved sessions and stuff. I find that if you open a terminal, just rm, it's fairly harmless, rm-r.cache, and then an asterisk for all, and reboot. And it should help if you had any problems. Alright, so I think that should cover it. Kind of long-winded. It seems complex, but it's just putting, parts together slowly over time, and, trial and error. So that's why I always suggest using Virtualbox or whatever virtual machine you're going to try these things out on. Okay, so just another way you can save your configurations. Of course, there's other ways of backing up or Clonezilla for your entire system. But like I said, if you want a fresh install of Arch Linux with most of the software updated, this is another option for you, and you get to use the GitHub, which is a great resource for this kind of thing. Alright, so that should wrap it up for this one, and thank you so much for watching. And any questions or comments, feel free to add, and thanks so much for watching again, and we'll talk to you soon. And bye for now.